If there is something that you would notice as a good Samaritan yourself, say someone getting beat down on the highway, we would probably stop and just do the proper thing and take that under control, and then call local law enforcement and let them handle it. But good Samaritan is what we would do at that point in time.
All right. One follow-up question, and then Ms. Long. I would like to be a volunteer as a lifelong resident of Bastrop County to be a part of this exercise. It would be a privilege and an honor for me to do so. Is there an opportunity for me to volunteer?
We have had a lot of people come forward and want to volunteer as role players. We're not really set up for that. We have other people, to include just 3 days ago, volunteer large swaths of acreage. Up to 1,400 acres was the most recent. Those usually come in, we look at them, we vet them, and we talk with them and explain everything up front. But there is room. This thing's really getting wired in tight at this point in time, so to add anything more onto it probably isn't going to happen.
Okay, good. Ms. Long?
My name is Sue Long. I'm just curious, this private landowner, how did they know to come to you to volunteer? I just haven't heard about this until the last week, and maybe I'm just in the dark somewhere, but there must be a way for them to have learned about this.
It's word of mouth, so it usually starts with a veteran who understands the R&T process and knows what we want to achieve through our training events to get our guys ready for overseas deployments. And then from there it spreads and they say, hey, I know someone else over here. It's truly word of mouth.
Interesting.
Thank you, Ms. Long. Question about the water. With Bastrop shortage of water, where are you going to get 500 gallons of water at a time? That's just
5,000 gallons of water.
Yeah, so there is Camp Swift. Some of the exercise will take place on Camp Swift, and the water is provided to the military for needs on Camp Swift. So we use those things that are available to us.
Okay, Mr. Dahmer, where are you? Mr. Pfeiffer. Let's get the microphone to the gentleman in the striped shirt right there in the middle. And you have to state your name and ask your question, please.
My name is Daniel McClue, and I'm a resident of Bastrop, Texas. I grew up here and got a rich family military history, so thank you for your service. You said the Department of Homeland Security was not involved. However, they are a cabinet position. It's under the jurisdiction of the president, and you are also under the jurisdiction of the president. So under the Bush administration, there's a document created which is part of a bigger idea, but it was called Right-Wing Extremism, Current Economic and Political Climate Fueling Resurgent and Radicalization and Recruitment. And I won't get too much into that. However, it talks about gun owners, Christians, veterans, people that believe in the Constitution. In fact, when I look around in this room, a lot of people that are represented in this room are in that document. And so it seems to me that it's maybe kind of a slight conflict of interest that the government would be here in Texas in a place where people believe in the Constitution, where there are a lot of Christians, and if you're not a Christian, you're still allowed to practice your religion, and we respect that. And a lot of people that are proud to be gun owners. And so to see a big military buildup here, to me, I think those kind of people that pay attention and look at the documents the government puts out on right-wing extremism under the Bush administration, but we've got a new president that, I'm not going to go any further on that. But so I'm curious, and I'm no George Bush fan, but I'm curious. You said that the Department of Homeland Security wasn't directly involved in this. Are you aware of that document, the right-wing extremism?
No, you'd have to, one, take up the issue that you have with the Department of Homeland Security on that.
Okay.
Two, when you say, hey, we're all in that category, that really does actually template across, I'd say, 90% of the military. regardless
Right.
of service. And I again have.
So do you find it kind of offensive that the government would potentially label you as a terrorist, sir?
Just to conclude that's enough.
Okay, and also, according to Mike over here, he was talking about representation, Mr. Poppy. I voted for you, sir, and I respect you. And the people of Bastrop do not want this.
We have lots of other.
Okay.
Come out to the gentleman in the red shirt right here, I think, Mr. Watt.
My name is Tom Watts. I'm a vet. And I have a question. Who's the suit?
Introduced at the beginning of the meeting, Tom.
Well, his name was given, but not what he does or who he is.
He is in charge of the
operations planner and exercise designer.
All right. One thing I'd like to say about special ops, I spent 20 plus years as a super spook. You know what that is, don't you? If this gets noisy, it's going to be because they did something wrong. It's not their job to be noisy. But I do have another question. You brought up the fact that you believe in supporting the Constitution. Why aren't you doing this job in Washington, D.C., where they don't believe in the Constitution instead of here?
I've been in the Army 27 years. This is my passion. This is the way that I serve my country.
Thank you.
gentleman right here, please.
Hi, James Dimitri, KUT News. You mentioned that the FBI and other State Departments are going to participate in this practice, and I was wondering if you could give me an example of what specifically they're going to be doing. You mentioned that they used to gather evidence in the field. Well, this is not Iraq or Afghanistan, so what sort of evidence will you be looking for or training them to search for here?
So again, with the State Department, it's all about nation building. So we want to make sure that, hey, with the role players that are there representing the forces that we would interact with overseas, what do they need for to establish their government or solidify their government, or do they need something from an offshoot of the State Department, USAID? Okay, maybe there's a medical emergency or a crisis that we don't know about, and then we go back and we feed it back up through the communications chain, and it makes sure that it gets to the right person at the higher headquarters who's representing the State Department or USAID. Vice versa, I said there would be a representative from the FBI working at the higher headquarters on a federal installation in support of this exercise. He will be looking at some of the message traffic that comes back up, and with one of the role players, he may ask, hey, you know, it could be just an inject, and an inject is something that will drive the exercise. They may come back and say, hey, this guy who you've identified as Clark Gerkenstein, okay? We really don't think he's Clark Gerkenstein. We think he's Helmet Holt. And it just drives the exercise. That's it. That's all they're doing. Making sure that we're training up and down.
So they would only be used for...
You have a follow-up question?
Yes. So they would only be used in a scenario if you're not actually to gather any sort of...
And they won't even be here.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Blake, if you'll bring the mic back to this side of the room, to the gentleman in the front here. We have some other questions that we'll get to. And one is a question for me. Why weren't you prepared for this huge turnout? This is a great country we live in, and social media has added a whole new level of citizen involvement. Frankly, I am pleasantly surprised to see the public input here and the public interest here. I think I sense that as being a thing that's good for America, good for democracy, and should we ever do this again, we'll know to have this over at the convention center. Just didn't expect quite this much response. But we thank you for being here, and we're trying to accommodate and make everybody as comfortable as possible. I have a couple more here, and then we'll get to this gentleman. So you talked about terrain and distances. Why are you not utilizing on-base sites for these kinds of things? And the last question was for me. Why was the public not allowed to vote on this? We've talked about that.
Okay, so
Why is it so important to do this off-base?
again, if the realistic military training takes place off the federal installation, we know those installations like the axe of our hands. It's really getting out there and exposing them to new terrain that they're not familiar with, to include even the road networks that they may have to travel from one point in Texas to another point in Texas.
Yes, sir.
I guess Cameron Medicine from Dallas. I guess my question is related to that last question about why does it need to be done here. And you had mentioned that these activities have been going on for 25 years. So one of my questions is, I'm curious to know how this one compares in size and scope to the ones that have happened before, and in relation to that, or in conjunction with that, why now? We've been in the Middle East for 20 years, you know. So why now? And then
What more can you learn?
And then the other thing is I'm a little confused. Am I correct that this activity is going to be going on between the hours of 11 p.m. and 2 or 3 or 4?
24 hours a day.
Okay. Well, because I guess I'm confused because you keep saying that it has to do with allowing interaction with the civilians by letting your guys blend in. But then we keep talking about how we're not going to see them. And so I can't understand. When I think of special ops, I mean, and again, I'm a layman. I'm pretty ignorant.
Don't be too editorial. Your question.
Really trying to
You actually asked 2 questions. Let him answer those questions.
Well, my thought is that special ops, late at night, blending in. You mentioned searching for bombs that had been given to children.
No, that was an example. That has
Right,
nothing
but I
to do
mean, an
with
example of my understanding was of what they're going to be training for over here. I'm just very confused as to.
Yeah. So, and that's what I talked about earlier on. 14 years of combat still going on. We've been exercising 2 of the core tasks associated with that. There are at least 20 other core tasks that we need to train on that we have not been able to because of the high op tempo. Things are kind of slowing down a little bit. We need to get back to the basics, back to the fundamentals. Some of these tasks the guys have not trained on since they went through the Special Forces qualification course. You had another question within there.
Well, I mean, I guess you answered the why now, but I guess I'm still confused as to the whole blending in. I don't understand. First of all, the one question was how does it relate in size and scope to the previous ones?
Okay, so
I mean, this to me seems like a broad, coordinated event over multiple states.
correct.
But again, why now? What are we planning for? What are we anticipating for in the future?
Future operations overseas.
We're in trouble, man.
Yeah.
If that's, I mean, if we're going to increase, I'm sorry, what we've already done.
Let's break this down. We've already fought the last 14 years. Okay? Special operations forces look toward the future. All right, so in order to do that, we know how to fight what we've been going through the last 14 years. We've pretty much mastered that. Okay? We've been neglecting, because of the op tempo, our other skill sets. We have to make sure that we maintain the edge on those skill sets because we may be called upon them to be used in the future. You don't want to have a skill and then forget how to use it when you're called upon. Or say, hey, hold on, I need 9 months to train up on that. Your special operations, you need to have that in your hip pocket right away.
Thank you. The gentleman behind the camera there, Blake, if you hand the microphone to him while you're going there. Here's a question, and I'm not sure I understand the language. How do you reconcile this with the training videos of U.S. Marines training for riot control involving sovereign citizens? Is there anything there?
One, I'm not aware of that training. I can speak for United States Army Special Operations Command, so to ask me a question about the Marine Corps and then for me to answer it would be irresponsible at best.
But you're not training the Army for in riot control involving sovereign citizens?
No, sir, we're not.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Like the gentleman behind the camera.
Oh, thank you. And this gentleman has had his hand up for a long time, so if it would please the court, maybe he can talk next. First of all, sir, could I have you two gentlemen just for my camera?
What's your name, sir?
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Shikari Jackson, InfoWars.com. Okay. Anyway, for the two gentlemen, can you guys, just for the camera, state your names and positions again?
I'll state my name. I'm the spokesman for United States Army Special Operations Command. I'm the guy giving the brief.
Yes, sir.
I'm Lieutenant Colonel Mark Lestore. I'm the Director of Public Affairs, United States Army Special Operations Command, Fort Bragg, North Carolina.
Okay. Now we're talking about role players, and you mentioned the role players. So I'm curious as to how you guys came about these role players, and also will there be any drills to round up and/or detain the role players?
As far as the role players go, they are going to be service members, and if there's an incident like that, it's going to be within the scope of the exercise for unconventional warfare for future operations overseas.
Will anybody be detained or rounded up in the
It's
exercise?
possible. It's for future operations overseas. So in the Convention of Unconventional Warfare, all right, there could be a point where it goes kinetic. So, and then you have to execute actions on the objective.
Well, I guess we keep coming back to the same question: how are these guys going to blend in overseas? I mean, and at
It
night.
all starts from the basics. Okay, we don't just go and say run. You got to crawl, you got to walk, and then you're running. So to start blending in, and we do it back here. We start picking up things that will apply later on. Hey, I do need to pay attention to certain types of shoes. These aren't available over here. And like I said before, and people were disagreeing with me, they dress differently in Fayetteville, North Carolina. They just do. It's bizarre.
Okay, in fact, let's go to the gentleman here. Sitting next to you. State your name, please.
My name is Daryl Bartley. I live here in Bastrop. And I know with any kind of operation, you said this is a joint exercise. Of course, that's going to take some time to ramp up if you're going to be ready to perform these exercises for 2 months. How come we weren't informed on the ramp up time? Are you here now, ramping up, getting ready? People are coming in.
I think you've answered that question.
And well, we've also noticed along the hostile territories as depicted in your map, some UN trucks, vehicles with UN on it. Are they involved?
No. If those trucks do exist, they have nothing to do with Jade Helm. Training exercise Jade Helm or United
So
States.
DHS, FEMA, or UN is not involved in this?
Yeah, or even the Walmart closings have nothing to do with this.
Thank you. Like, if you'll come back over here. Ms. Wareham has her hand up and has been very patient. But you can, like her, while you're moving that way, in the green shirt. Realistic training would include dealing with armed opposition and also identifying and arming and supporting local friendly forces. Are these components involved in this training?
Parts of those, actually, yes, they are, but they're done with role players.
And they're done?
And the role players are military.
All right. Okay. We've asked already about that. Ms. Wareham?
Thank you, Commissioner. My name is Terry Wareham. I'm a Bastrop County resident. I'm also with the Bastrop County Tea Party. I was here at the meeting on January 26th when I heard Mr. Meade's presentation. And I've also been doing some additional research. And I'm kind of hearing some discrepancies in what's going on from there, what I've heard in some other presentations that he's done. First of all, if private landowners came to the military and invited them on their property, why do we need to have this type of a presentation? Why do we need to have the invitation from the Commissioner's Court and also from like the City of Smithville Council? Why do we need that? Also, we were told this was unconventional training. Mr. Meade gave the analogy that this would be like the French resistance during World War II, where the French resisted against the German occupation. Well, what you're saying today doesn't quite make sense. If you've got 60 people coming to private property, I don't understand what the big deal is all about then.
Your question is where now?
If you're training on private property, why do you need to have the invitation from The Commissioner's Court?
It's notification for the coordination, make sure that it's done safely for everybody involved. And the MOU, MOA, again, goes back for whatever reason we may damage a bridge or something to that nature. It's a dual concurrence. That's all it is. Now, going back to the your culture, your analogy from what we're talking about. Why 60 people? Okay, there's that side.
Mr. Meade's analogy.
Right, and it's a legitimate analogy. It's a historic case. The French resistance were aided by the precursor to the United States Army Special Forces, which was the OSS. They helped them, they supplied them, they made sure they were able to talk on radios and communicate with their forces. You're asking 60, it just doesn't seem right. Some of those people are exercise support to make sure that, hey, nothing's going to go wrong, and role players. And then there will be one ODA, an A-team. Some people refer to them as A-team. That's the popular connotation of it. I can tell you, and everybody wants to do their research on it, and there are SF veterans out here, that 12-man element is just practicing their skills that they need to operate overseas. When they go overseas, they have the capability and the capacity to build up from farmers, school teachers, clerks, a 650-man force to go work overseas and take care of things that are in our national interest. So that's what 12 men do. We're training small groups, but really the larger part of this exercise is the communication back and forth on this from the higher headquarters to make sure that it's a push-pull.
But it's on private property.
Correct.
So, I don't understand. Yeah, who are you blending with then if you're on private property?
We have the role players, and it'll be done on private property.
Let me ask you this. Military personnel, while they are involved in this training on private property, subject to local and state laws and regulations? Yes. Answer is yes.
So if we go speeding down the road, we're going to get into it.
Yes, you will.
Hi, my name is Mark Harris, and I'm a resident of Bastrop. I'm also a former military special operations soldier. Colonel, appreciate you being here today to present the Army's position. Not everybody's comfortable with that, but there are many of us in the community that are here to be supportive in any way that we can to ensure that these soldiers are trained. Trained soldiers save lives, not only foreign people, but U.S. citizens themselves. The more soldier trains in more adverse conditions, the more terrain that you can experience will better equip them to deal with whatever they're going to encounter when they get somewhere. We have in the past asked the Germans, the Koreans, South Americans to be supportive of our training. Tens of thousands of troops going into Europe for reforging. We were dealing with mission warfare. We've evolved.
Let's get to the question.
So my question would be, what examples can we look to from past operations in the U.S. and out that might serve as models for the citizens to get better informed through a non-tainted view, right? So a objective view.
And some of those are as simple as just an airfield seizure. So there are a lot of paratroopers at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. There's a whole division of the 82nd right there. They constantly practice airfield seizure. Airfield seizure was a mission essential task both in Panama and Grenada. And that's a perfect example for people to see why training nonstop has to occur. So as they trained at Fort Bragg, they started looking at other places where they could train off post as well to get exposure to new terrain, new airfields, and just add a new level of experience before they go into combat.
The lady right beside you there, Blake, but let me ask a couple of these from downstairs. And again, I appreciate the folks down there for their participation. Will any of this exercise have anything to do with Agenda 21?
I'm not familiar with what Agenda 21 is.
Good. What is the highest level of the government, the federal government, that approved this operation?
Okay, so it's approved at the local level. Some people, may have called their congressman and found out, hey, my congressman doesn't know about training exercise Jade Helm. In the R&T process, there are 3 levels, level 1, 2, and 3. Level 3 requires congressional notification. Jade Helm is predominantly a level 1. In some places where a helicopter may come in a certain period of darkness, moves it up to a level 2. So then on top of it, people may have called their congressman and they still didn't know anything about Jade Helm. Not every congressman sits on every committee. All right, not every committee represents Special Operations Command. It comes down to that. Now we have made coordination with the governor's office, and we have also made coordination with the Border Patrol as well, because they had some concerns, and we just said, hey, here's a scheme of maneuver, and we just wanted to make sure we weren't crossing paths at all. And we had another unfortunate incident like we did about 8 years ago.
All right. Thank you. If you'll get the microphone to the gentleman. I'm sorry, you first, and then the gentleman in the gray shirt behind you. Yes, ma'am.
Hi there. My major question is I'm Melinda Ham, and I live here in Bastrop. As you said, there's a lot of activity on social media with this, and not all of it's true. And so my question is, I've seen that this Jade Helm event is happening in many other states. I was wondering if you could clarify how many states are being affected by this, and what other counties are being affected in Texas.
I don't have the list of counties with me. The other states are Arizona, New Mexico, Mississippi, Louisiana, Florida, and Utah. Thank you. So the extent of things occurring in Florida will happen on Eglin Air Force Base, federal installation. The extent of things happening in Louisiana will be on Camp Mississippi's Camp Shelby. Louisiana is Camp Beauregard. And then here in Texas, and then on military installations in the other states that I mentioned.
Are we the only ones that are being held on private property?
Utah and Utah.
Utah and Bastrop County are the only.
No, the other counties in Texas as well. I don't have that listed.
Do we have an idea?
The hospital.
I think it's up to 12.
So there's 12.
It's on private land.
Thank you for your question. The gentleman right back there in the t-shirt. So, are you kamikaze? Kamikaze hat? So, does that act prohibit the operation that you're going to be conducting here on private property? Should that be required to be on a military basis?
No, because we're not doing any type of law enforcement. We're just trained for operations overseas, operations overseas.
Good. Yes, sir.
Yes, my name is Theodore Zuniga, and thank you so much for being here. This is awesome. I'm so glad I've gotten to be a part of this, and thank you for your service. Thank you for being here. I would like to ask, this is really the only thing I'm wondering. Let's say during the training, which is happening on private property, first of all, there's a lot of people in Bastrop, or maybe not a lot, but there are people in Bastrop who are very against Jade Helm. And there's some people who are for it. I am just here to figure out what would happen if someone who is radically against Jade Helm, what would happen if there is an altercation between them and the training? They get on the training land, some kind of altercation happens, I'm not sure what it is. What is y'all's process for dealing with that altercation, and what happens? Does it go directly to the local police department, or is that something y'all handle? And what happens because of that? What are the repercussions for that? Is there a total shutdown of that property? Is there a shutdown of the surrounding properties? Is there a shutdown of our county? What is y'all's repercussions, and what is y'all's way of handling an altercation if one was to happen?
The short answer on that is, one, I would find it bizarre that someone would want to violate someone else's private property make a statement when everybody's concerned about their own private and individual rights. But we'll go with the scenario. We would call local law enforcement at that point in time. It's a law enforcement issue at that point in time.
And are there already plans and kind of, have y'all already drawn out, okay, if this was to happen, just to be ready, if this was to happen, do you already have some kind of plans as far as what chain of command that process would go through and what y'all would do in order to mitigate that circumstance?
The short answer is we do, yes.
Thank you. The lady right in front of you, Blake, she'll be next, but will drones be used in any way during this exercise?
Yes, sir.
Will there be any roadblocks that would impede the general public from driving up and down county or state roads during this exercise?
No.
None. All right.
If there were, we'd have to coordinate with you.
Yes, sir.
That's why there aren't any.
Thank you.
We want to keep the roads open.
Exactly. Your question, ma'am, if you'd stand and state your name and ask your question.
My name is Vivian Wadley. Can you tell us how many pieces of private property are involved in this exercise and how you're going to transport your personnel betwixt and between these properties?
So it's, again, 12 counties, significant amount of private land associated with that. I don't have an exact number for you. We can take your name, number, we can get it back as well.
Here in Bastrop County.
It could be up to as many as 15 private landowners here in Bastrop County. Moving in between, exercise support to make sure that we have water for those guys. With the prime movers, it's 2 Humvees. To move people in between, as necessary, we will have rental vehicles. Also, one of the things is working with the private landowner. The private landowner may have a piece of non-standard equipment, say like a cattle truck, and he may move somebody on a cattle truck from point A to point B, much like you'd find in Europe. They move people from point A to point B on non-standard vehicles.
Thank you. Thank you. The gentleman over here in the red colored shirt. You've already answered how many troops will be involved. Where will these troops, or how will these troops be housed?
Okay, so the ones working out on the private land, they will stay on the private land. Some people for coming in as specific role players or for exercise support will stay in hotels here in the community.
Does the housing of these troops in any part of the Jade Helm 15 military training exercise have anything to do with recent Walmart closings anywhere in America?
No, it was, again, everybody wants this to be something that it's not, and they'd like to pin everything on Jade Helm that happens. An extra minute's worth of research quickly figures out that the closing of the Walmarts was due to labor disputes. So they got everywhere. At certain Walmarts, and it was just easier to say no. It's really Jade Helm.
Right. That brings me to this question. Are you aware that Army helicopters have already been flying over property in Bastrop County? I understand that these ops aren't supposed to start until July 15. So is there any correlation between the fact that Gainesville military training bases here and has been here for a long, long time, and the fact that every now and then 2 or 3 choppers will fly over in formation, moving from one part of Texas to the other? Is this a part of the Jade Helm at all?
No, sir, it's not. It has nothing to do with Jade Helm. That includes, I think there was a concern of jet aircraft as well.
I want the public to know that we have supported military training here in Bastrop County for a long time. We're the home to the largest National Guard training facility in the state of Texas. Tens of thousands of men and women come here every year to train at Camp Swift. We're going to continue to see military training. There are going to be people walking up and down our streets in fatigues, eating in our restaurants, buying gas in our stores. They'll have nothing to do with Jade Helm. So let's be respectful of that and not overplay this and make it something that it really isn't. Yes, sir.
I'm sorry. Can I add on to that real quick? There are some cases out there where concerned citizens are just walking up to National Guardsmen and harassing them about Jade Helm. If they're not in Army Special Operations Command, they're not going to know about Jade Helm. They're just doing their job. And that goes to airmen, Marines, and sailors as well. And people are going into recruiting stations, and they're not going to know about Jade Helm. They're not in Army Special Operations Command.
Well, and I'm just asking all the citizens of Bastrop County to show the respect that you always show to our military men and women who come here to train.
Dave Eckert, I'm a retired Army major, and I appreciate the explanation you've been given because it's alleviating a lot of our concerns. My primary focus is the safety of the civilians, so I have a few more questions, quick ones. Will there be observer controllers with each of the teams out in the field?
Yes.
Okay, and my understanding from what you say is that there will be no training events that occur in the town when they come in to resupply or get any support, correct?
In Bastrop, there will not be. None of them will be in city limits whatsoever.
Will there be any type of events in towns, other places in Texas?
On private property.
Just on private property?
Private property.
Okay. I'm assuming that there's going to be an op or opposing force.
We just have the role players that are a part of it. So some of the role players will put the injects in as necessary.
But there will be no in strange uniform op-4 on private property that want to go get a burger at lunch and come into town?
No, they won't be wearing a uniform to come into town to get a burger. Some weird looking uniform. They will be in, if they come in uniform, like I want to get a burger, I'll be in this uniform.
Okay, so there is, to alleviate, again, I'm sorry to double tap, okay, but there aren't going to be any type of events where someone drives up and there's a deputy sheriff and somebody as a guerrilla or somebody as a host nation forces wanting to check IDs on the public roads. No. Thank you very much.
Thank you. While you're there, if they just move around to this gentleman and pull over. While he's doing that, let me ask this one. Well, actually, those are both been asked before. Wonderful questions from both this audience and the one downstairs. But I think we're getting now to where we're kind of rehashing, recovering some territory. Somebody asked if they could get a copy of the transcript of this meeting. The answer is yes. It'd be part of the public record. It'd be a little bit expensive to do that, but you're certainly welcome to ask for that through the Open Records Act, and it will be available through our public clerk's office, who is the official record keeper of county business. Your question, your name and question, sir.
Mr. Chairperson, members of the commission, my name is John Dietz. I've practiced law about 25 years. My primary residence is outside the United States now, in large part, because I'm sad to say we've become a police state, and I feel freer in a separate country than I do in my own country anymore. My question, and I do appreciate your service, and I have no question taking note of most of the folks who are serving the military like you're very honorable. But we cannot deny the fact that there's been this rendition program when our own government, with honorable people like you, with sworn oaths, have engaged in horrific, embarrassing, for probably everyone in this room, kidnapping foreign citizens in foreign countries and taking them places for torture. There's one individual from Germany and stuff that got taken to Slovenia or Slovakia for 3 weeks and was tortured horribly and let go on a street in Eastern Europe, only to return to Germany and say, hey, you got the wrong guy.
Let's focus on Jade Helm and your question here.
Yes, sir. My question is, why is it not reasonable? Look, these folks, you're not going to be traveling in rental cars or cattle trucks in Afghanistan or any other country. Why is it not reasonable for me as a private citizen who just questions things, maybe conspiracy theories, but somebody just has some reasonable questions? Why is it not reasonable for me to see this as absolute training for a domestic rendition program where eventually, worst case scenario, if things go bad, good folks like yourself and sworn oaths are going to go after Alex Jones, Joe Biggs, Jakari Jackson. Why is it not reasonable, sir, for me to be scared about that?
Good question. Let's let you answer that question.
So I'm not taking away that from you. That's your own belief, and you're entitled to it. But I've presented the facts as they are, and that's just how it is. You may not agree with them, and that's your right.
How Hitler started to take over Germany.
By the way, we're not here. I did not call this, and the court didn't agree to have this special meeting to convince anybody of anything. We're here to share information, and that's why we've conducted it in this way. You may go away from here believing just the same thing you believed when you came in. And that's your right as an American to do that. And part of this training is going to continue to defend your right as an American to do that. The gentleman on the second row there in front of you, Blake, if you would.
Judge, it's your obligation to understand how these people feel. And this is a one-sided conversation. It's nothing but questions, and nobody gets to make a statement about what it appears to be to us. So that might be necessary.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Your name and your question.
My name's Rod Stewart. I had a question a while ago.
Rod, I didn't realize you were asking a second question. A lot of people here haven't had a chance to ask one.
Okay.
If you don't mind, please, let's go ahead and pass the mic over to the gentleman in the blue and red shirt there. There are several who haven't had a chance to ask one question. Rod, thank you. Stand up, please, and state your name.
My name is Pat LaPound. If asked to confiscate guns, what would you do?
Well, it's not part of the training exercise whatsoever, so it's not going to happen.
Yeah. So if you're ordered to confiscate guns, you wouldn't do it, right?
We're talking hypotheticals. You can ask me as a private citizen.
What would you do?
Okay, I'm here representing the United States Army Special Operations Command. I'm not in a private capacity. So if you see me on the street someday, ask me that question. I'll answer as a private citizen.
And I think he stated clearly he was not a part of this military training exercise. So the answer is he won't be asked. Mike, please take it to the back of the room, the young lady who's been so patient and holding up her hand. Thank you.
Gigi Berger, Lee County. Will you put any notices out to the people in neighboring counties when it actually gets ready to go live?
We understand that there are shared borders within the counties, so the immediate advisories, the notification, even with local law enforcement, to an county that abuts here at Bastrop, that will occur as well.
So sheriff, police department, is that what we're talking about?
And media advisory as well.
Okay, well, no, that's... Second question, going dark, what does that mean when it's dark? Are you guys actually going to be completely dark, or?
When I said we're operating in a period of darkness,
yes, sir.
That just means nightfall.
Okay, but you won't be actually having cutting any power, right?
No, it just means, it's how we refer to nightfall. We just keep track of time that way. Period of darkness, number 1, 2, 3.
Okay. And cyber operations, is there any cyber security in this particular exercise?
Not here in Bastrop in a notional sense only. There will be some cyber injects, but they're all notional. It's not on a network.
And one more question that is on these documents, is this for World War III?
No, and I've heard that before. I've heard a lot of things. This has,
Okay, thank you.
The young lady was from Lee County. Well, Lee County, are any of these operations or military exercises being conducted in Lee County?
Lee County.
How about Fayette County? How about Caldwell County? How about Travis County? And how about Williamson? Okay. That's all. Those are the 5 counties that surround. Blake, if you'll move toward the center here. The gentleman sitting there on the second from back row, we'll ask him to stand, say his name and give his question, and then we'll take care of the others who are right there in that same area. Thank you.
My name is Bob Gibson. I live in Cedar Creek. With all the comments being made here this morning, and to the judge and to the colonel, I thank you for your service, but do you understand why the citizenry doesn't trust our federal government?
I understand that the people that have spoken that way here have those concerns, and I appreciate your opinion on that. But again, United States Army, 240 years. I've worn this uniform across 5 different administrations for 27 years. And, if I were still a younger man, I'd wear it for another 27 more.
Someone else in the middle there have their hand up. Please state your name and ask your question.
How you doing? My name is PJ Smith, former AFSOC CCT. I just had a question. During the RMTs that are being conducted, how many civilians have actually been injured, if at all, and What are those numbers in the 25 years?
Yeah, so we discussed that earlier. There was the one fatality during Operation Rock and Sage back in North Carolina.
But not a civilian.
Not a civilian. Not a
So the
civilian.
answer is 0. There's a gentleman there with a camera and also his hand up, so give the mic over to him if you would, Blake. Thank you. Yes, sir. State your
Hi,
name.
my name is Colin Wright. I appreciate your service. My question is, do you really expect the strategies and tactics of blending in with the people of Bastrop, Texas, and the coordination with county law enforcement to apply overseas?
Sir, it's a starting point. Again, we crawl, we walk, we run, and we train. So you start here, we train, and we learn some things. And then when we go somewhere else, we learn some more things. It's just, it all really builds upon itself.
Okay, is there a reason why you're starting here?
We just look for, one, that land is volunteer. So it all starts by private citizens coming forward saying, hey, not only do I support the military in my word, I'm going to support it in my deed. So from there, word of mouth travels, other people want to volunteer land, and you're able to put together a training scenario that works as a template for overseas operations.
Thank you very much, Blake. There's a gentleman on the second row forward there in the green shirt. If you hand him the microphone, he's got his hand up. State your name, sir.
Yes, my name is Dean Brown. I live here in Bastrop. Many of us, our neighbors here, went through a very traumatic experience with the fires. Several of us are still not over that psychologically, and we know our neighborhoods are not over that. Why would we want to subject us to this level of anxiety on the heels of that kind of catastrophic event?
That's a very good question, and I have to tell you that part of that is the blame for that would be laid on me. I did not anticipate any anxiety from the public of Bastrop County regarding this realistic military training. When the program was explained to me, as it's been explained to you today, it sounded to me like a great idea and something that we should support because we understand the value of training and we train people here. This is a big part of our economy. Many people live in Bastrop County today because they came here as a part of the Berkshire Air Force Base. They liked it here, they stayed here, they retired here, bought land and lived and raised their families here. I honestly had no idea that there would be this kind of public concern about it. Again, I'm naive about social media. I didn't know that it was such a powerful tool in sharing information. It's also a powerful tool in sharing misinformation. And so a lot of what we're seeing here today is a surprise to me, but it's part of the public process. It's part of the democratic process, and I'm very glad that we're doing this. But again, the information has been shared. Answers have been given honestly, clearly, succinctly, and you take that and deal with it and make of it what you will. But if I, as your county judge, thought we were in one iota of a danger from this military training coming to Bastrop County, I would do all I could to put a stop to it. I do not feel that way. If your Commissioner's Court felt any angst at all about this, we would try to put a stop to it. That's not what we feel. And I'm being elaborating on this question because I think we've raised a really important issue. Bastrop County, many citizens of Bastrop County are still suffering and reeling from the disaster 3.5 years ago. We will live with that the rest of our lives, those of us who have lived in Bastrop County. But hopefully, we cannot let that be a negative anchor in our lives. We're trying to move on as a county. We're doing all we can to be resilient and to bounce back from that and to be better. And I think in a lot of ways Bastrop County is. We support our military, we support training, and I just felt like this would be a good thing for Bastrop County because that's what we do. There's a young lady at the back there who has her hand up, and then the gentleman in the hat in the back. I really wish, just out of respect for the court, if not anybody else, if all of you who have hats on would remove them, please, while you're in the court. The young lady first, and then the gentleman in the back.
My name is Casey DeClue, And my question is more posed towards the Commissioner's Board. As citizens, since we are so disturbed by this training, is there anything that we can do to reverse this decision? Or,
We should be able to.
can we vote?
As a vote.
Do we need to protest? What can we do to have our voices heard?
Well, I think, Mrs. Fu, your voices have been heard today, and we thank you for that. I can't say what the court would do about it, but I know what I would do, and that is I would ask these gentlemen who have heard your concerns and who have given you answers about things that you've asked about to make this a part of their operation here in Bastrop County, to be sure that none of the angst that has been expressed here today is justified, and that they come here and do their training and move in and move out, and we may never know they were here any more than you don't know when 400 or 500 or 1,000 troops come into Camp Swift military base for training. That happens every weekend and throughout the summer, all during the week. That doesn't worry us. That doesn't worry us. We have Humvees driving up and down the highways of Bastrop County all summer long. Some in convoys. No one worries about martial law or citizen's arrest or any of those kinds of things under those circumstances. This training, as it's been explained to us, is simply an extension of the training that needs to happen so that our troops are safer and more effective all around the world. And I think that we have, I think we're in a good position here to provide this training. You have a follow-up question, Mr.
Thank you. So essentially what you're saying is this decision has been made and there's nothing that we can do as private citizens to reverse it?
The decision has been made, and I'm not going to say that there's nothing that would, I will say this. If the information that has been given to us at this meeting had been contradictory to what we had already been told about it, then it would be our responsibility as your Commissioner's Court to do all we could, all within our power, to put a stop to it if we thought it was a threat to the citizens of Bastrop County or would create any civil unrest or any risk to you. But the facts haven't changed.
Yes, but you all as public servants, when you see this much unrest, does it not disturb you that you're not representing your citizens' needs?
Of course, we are very in tune to our citizen concerns, and that's why we had this meeting, by the way, and that's why we asked people for their input. But we've heard your concerns, and we've heard their answers to your concerns, and I think we're ready to move forward with this.
I wanted to do something about it. I wanted to stop it.
Thank you, Mr. Flynn. I'm asking these
I
gentlemen
want to know
to...
the steps that we can take as citizens for it to stop.
Thank you. These gentlemen to take all of this into the milieu of their planning for this summer and to do all within their power to make sure that none of these fears and worries affect the citizens of Bastrop County. We do have a couple more questions. The gentleman who removed this cowboy hat, thank you for doing that. And the mic to him.
Yes, my name is Sean McAnally. I have a two-part question. I wondered, just a guesstimation, how many acres does the Army possess for training in the United States?
Sorry.
Yeah, would you say millions, somewhere around there?
Again, the RMT process takes the troops off of federal installations and exposes them to new terrain.
Okay, because you said you know all of these trains like the back of your hand. That was a quote from earlier. I'm guessing your troops don't know all of these millions of acres back the back of their hands, so you could use those. Since you've already spent billions of our dollars, our tax dollars, on those facilities, why go ahead and spend more billions on using private property?
Okay, one, it's not billions. Okay, so the economic impact here.
So the military doesn't spend billions of dollars.
That's an issue of national policy and the Defense Department. You should take it up to the appropriate level.
Thank you. Would you hand the mic to the young lady in the green blouse over here on the far side? She's had her hand up. And let me just say this, it's 1 o'clock. We're going to take maybe one or two more questions. I think we're at the point now that the questions are being repetitive and everyone has had an opportunity to let us know how they feel about this. We appreciate that. But we're going to, and I'm sure these gentlemen will stick around for a while if you want to talk to them individually. The court will stick around for a while. Might meet up with you over the Dairy Queen or something for a hamburger, but I think it's about time. Let's have this lady's comment and maybe one or two more, and then we will call. Yes, ma'am. Your name and your question.
Kathy Glass. Under our Texas Constitution, our Texas governor is commander-in-chief of the Texas military, State Guard, National Guard, Air National Guard. You said you coordinated with the governor's office. Did our governor approve this? And are any of our Texas military forces that I just mentioned going to participate or observe in this exercise? Thank you.
Okay, so with the participation in Texas forces,
No, there is no participation of Texas National Guard or
other than
Texas
using the
State Guard.
installations that we've already mentioned. Regarding the governor, we do. We have coordinated with the governor's office.
And did he approve it? Or
There was no issue with it.
Okay, I'm going to interpret that as he approved it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Glass. While we're here, the gentleman in the brown shirt, and then the gentleman in the maroon colored shirt on this side.
Sir, I just would like to ask a question that...
Did you not ask one earlier?
I was down, no, I have
You
not.
didn't?
I've been
I'm sorry.
upstairs and the feed cut out
Good.
during a question that I had, so I couldn't hear the answer.
Yes, ma'am. I think I know what your question is, and I will get that. Yes, ma'am. Go ahead, sir.
This is just a clarification. My name is Ben Zuniga. I'm from Bastrop. I just wanted to clarify, will there be any role play done in the community in public? Because the reason I'm concerned is because you mentioned that there was a need to blend in with people from Bastrop.
It's going to take place on private property.
Well, how does that work? How does that work?
It works within the aspects of the role play, but what we're asking the soldiers to do. It's being observed by the experts who are observing the exercise.
One follow-up question: will the people role-playing be dressed up as Bastropians?
Dressed in civilian clothing.
But it's different. But we can't do that.
Thank you for your question. If you will bring the mic to the lady in the middle. I understand that there was a bit of a problem with the feed downstairs.
Right.
You missed part of an answer to a question. What was that question?
Yes.
Your name is what?
Volterine DeClaire, Texas, Travis County. I was wondering about the logo for Jade Helm. You addressed that briefly. I didn't catch all of the answer. In particular, I'm curious about the symbology of the small wooden shoe.
The clog. Okay.
Clog.
So
Thank you.
yeah. So back in World War II, as part of the resistance against the German occupation Nazi forces, people from France, Holland, Netherlands, they would take off their shoes and throw them into the machinery, the war machinery that the Nazi occupation had overtaken. Those shoes were called sabots, French word for shoe, sabot. Hence, sabotage comes from that.
And what significance does this have to the operation?
It goes back to just the unconventional warfare, tracing back the lineage of U.S. Special Forces and how they helped the French resistance during World War II through the construct. It was an organization called OSS, Office of Strategic Support, or Strategic Services.
You have a follow-up question?
I do, thank you. Will the training exercise be focusing on playing both sides of the sabot experience, the saboteur, the guerrilla warfare? Will the military be exercising and training in both those capacities, both helping insurgent populations?
It's just to help the insurgent populations overseas, or a group that's oppressed overseas.
And also being an invading army which is dealing with saboteurs, is that also not part of it? Like, well, I would think that's what's similar to what happens in Iraq and Afghanistan, countries which the U.S. has gone into and faced insurgent populations. So how do you see the role of the sabotage being in that? Both sides, one side?
So for this exercise, it's truly just, it was just a symbol just to trace the lineage back on that unconventional warfare, tracing everything back to OSS back in World War II.
Yes, that's fine. Like, if you'll take the mic over to this gentleman.
I get a bit long-winded.
Well, I understand. We want to honor people tonight here. The gentleman in the brown shirt there. State your name, please.
My name is Alex May. Is it possible that training on private land or the goals and missions of Jade Helm are subject to change under an attack from foreign land or under civil unrest?
If something goes down, they ought to stick around.
I think the only thing that would stop Jade Helm, and we've discussed this, is a declaration of war, and we would have to mobilize the entire nation. So
that would not be part of the Jade Helm training exercise.
Is it possible it could change?
Anything is possible. That would be a scenario that, I mean, anything is possible. The world and anything. Look, I think we've had a very useful public hearing today. A lot of information been shared. Take this, mull it over, discuss it among yourselves. Make up your own minds about it. But it's been a useful interchange of information, and I appreciate the way you've acted respectfully toward each other and toward our guests here today. There's no way for us to answer every question with a group of this size. We could be here till midnight and there'd still be questions being asked. So that's not going to be productive. I'm going to now adjourn the meeting, and thank you all again for coming. Meeting adjourned. Thanks, Judge.
Make a decision. What's really for the he's a soldier. First rule you learn as a soldier is all the way to the end of the road. Follow orders. I just wonder how they're going to blend in with them cows are going to be on my 20 acres.